This is Examine Leadership Podcast. We are back with Nathaly Jimenez. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good, Kurt. How are you?
Excellent. Second time you've been on the podcast.
Yes.
Wonderful to have you back.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
Now, if you didn't hear the last episode with Nathaly is our life coach. Examine Leadership's goal is to create a network of professionals in a number of different areas. Business consulting, leadership counseling, relationship coaching, and that's what Nathaly does. She is a life coach, she's a relationship coach, so she is here to discuss that with us today. Now, I can't remember if last time we talked you were married or not.
I think no, I don't think I was.
So this is a recent development. I think you were still single back then.
Yeah, I think I was. I think I was just about to get married. Yeah.
So lots changed. When was your marriage date, wedding date? You still remember?
January 24th. Yes.
Don't forget that date. Although females usually have an easier time remembering that than the guys
absolutely.
do. I ain't never forgot mine. I got married twice, so I still remember. August 12th. 1 year, right back to back.
There you go.
Same woman. Little Marmon thing, if you're listening. So we got married in the courthouse one time and got married next year in the temple, the exact same date. So, yeah, August 12th. Not an easy day to forget. Wonderful day.
Indeed.
And in fact, that's kind of what we're discussing today, right?
Yes, exactly. So today we're going to be talking about how to make sure we pick a good marital partner. And then once we discuss that, we'll transition into, okay, so now you've picked a good marital partner. How do we avoid conflict? Excellent.
You know, when you told me that this was your topic, I wondered at first why you would choose this as your second topic. Last time we discussed parenting, you said that's fundamental. You have to know where you are, who you are, where you come from, what's your background, what your parents gave to you, and who you are is critical. But then marriage, dang, we just took a huge leap from growing up and what your parents instilled in you to getting married. Why is this number two the topic that you wanted to discuss? Is it just because you recently got married, or because this is that important?
A little bit of both. The first time we talked about parenting, we discussed how that's really like the base, right, for who we are. And then I think the next important choice that you make in your life, other than your career, other than your studies or your job or whatever it might be, it's who you're planning on spending the rest of your life with. That's huge.
If you're looking at it in terms of numbers, percentage-wise, 2/3, 3/4 of your whole life, maybe even more if you live in Utah, it is going to be with this person. So it's a pretty critical choice. You could have a miserable life if you make the wrong choice.
Right.
And I don't think, like you said, it's not all about the choice, but it's about how you adapt afterward. Or if you do it right, you could have a very happy, successful, fulfilled life. So where are we starting? Where do you want to go first?
So I wanted to start first discussing a little bit about how do we pick it, right? Why is it important to pick a good partner? Anybody that knew me as a teenager knew that I dated a lot, right? So I've had tons of different experiences with relationships, different people, right? Each one of them taught me something, contributed to my life in some way, shape, or form, which was also very important, and I'm forever grateful for that. And so a lot of times, as I grew up, I realized, looking back, right, at these past relationships, well, what did I learn from these men, right? What did they contribute to my life? I learned many things, but I think one of the most important things that I learned is that while attraction is very important, it is not the most important. And I think oftentimes when we meet someone, we get excited, we get the butterflies in our stomach, you want to talk on it, back in those days, you talk on the phone till your phone was overheating, mom would get mad at you, get off the phone. And so really, I think a lot of times we become so blinded by the illusion of who we want this person to be that we forget to really take a closer and deeper look at who they really are.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's because we let the attraction and the emotions blind us.
And I think that's still an important component, right? Mm-hmm. If you're physically attracted to someone, that's pretty important. That's critical.
It's huge.
You need to keep that sexual interest alive. I think it's more difficult than most people think. More couples than you would imagine. Well, probably not you would imagine. You talk to a lot of people. But yeah, a lot of people are unsatisfied sexually with their marriage and wish their partner would change. So if you have that physical attraction and connection, you're blessed. You're incredibly fortunate, and make sure you work to keep it alive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't say that's even in, I've been married 15 years now. I would say that's not even in my top 10 most important things about my spouse, how sexually active or how good our physical connection is right now. You're newly married, but I don't know if that ranking still is similar for you.
It is very important, of course, because I mean, the act of being physical with the person that you love is huge, right? It's an expression of love that you can't verbally express, right? You can only express it physically. While that is a huge component in what makes a relationship, a marriage, it isn't top priority. Yeah. It is a priority, but it's not at the top of the list.
Yeah. I like what you said. There are some things, I try to tell my wife this, there are some things I can't express to you in words.
Right.
There's some things I want to be able to physically demonstrate and tell you. And so you do need that. Usually though, and especially for girls, things need to be going good before you're able to express that. My therapist always says that guys need to get that physical connection. Guys need to have sex to connect. Mm-hmm. Women need to have already connected in order to get to sex. So you got to have it both ways.
Yeah.
But since that's not the most important, naturally you're going to date someone you're physically attracted to, then what would you say you need to be looking for? How do you choose? What other things do you analyze?
I think we need to look at personality traits. We need to look at, one of the things that I remember growing up, my mother would always tell me, if you want to know a guy, if you want to know how he's going to treat you, look at the way he treats his mother, right? So you got to take a deep look at personality traits, their upbringing, look at the red flags. I think oftentimes we're so afraid to look at the defects or the flaws of the person that we end up obscuring the truth. We focus too much on the positive. Oh, well, he's a great guy. He bought me flowers. He helped me pay my rent. He helped me pay my student loans. He opened the door for me. We look at all these positive things, which are great, right? It's great to acknowledge those things, but I think oftentimes we focus too much on that and we tend to obscure the truth.
It's funny how that seems to switch when you get married. A lot of times you only focus on the negatives.
Yep.
Look at all the things this person's not doing. I had high hopes. And you're failing in categories A, B, C, and W.
It becomes magnified.
It does. So you talked about knowing a personality type. Would you give a date a personality test?
I would. Absolutely. 100% I would.
For real?
Yes.
So the top 5, we took the big 5 together to see how open, conscientious, extroverted, agreeable, and neurotic someone is. We took that together. Mm-hmm. I think you even took it before you were married. Did you make Angel take it?
So I did when we were engaged, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had already decided this is the guy, but just to be sure, how neurotic are you?
Yeah. He was pretty low. I want to say he scored like somewhere in the teens, so not very neurotic, no.
He is such a great dude. He's one of the most level-headed guys that I know. Now, I'm thankful my wife didn't make me take the test. I score higher on neuroticism than anybody I know. Every test I've looked at, no one's come close to my neuroticism, so I'm grateful she didn't test me. But that's not a bad idea. One test we've also taken together is the love language test. I think that's a great one to take.
It is.
Maybe we could talk about that post-marriage. I don't know if that's as applicable to pre-marriage, but yeah, knowing personality types, knowing how, and this may transition into your second topic, knowing how to resolve conflict together or how you're going to negotiate together. If you can't negotiate, it's going to be a difficult marriage. So how does this person negotiate? How do they get through conflict?
Right.
How do we compromise together?
Yeah.
Do you look for opportunities to do that as you're dating? Do you make those things happen, or do you just allow them to happen naturally?
In my personal case, right, I've just let it sort of happen naturally, but I don't necessarily create a situation where I could purposefully trigger my spouse now, my boyfriend at the time, right? I didn't purposely go out of my way to do that, but there were situations where he could have easily taken the route to, get agitated or irritated, and I simply just observed. I just wanted to see, that I feel like that just gives you a huge sense of what you're going to be dealing with long term. If you have somebody who's explosive, who's full of rage, you're looking at a red flag there, especially if it's something, minute, it's not that important. It is a red flag, in my opinion. And sometimes I feel like we allow ourselves to justify those actions because, like I said, we focus too much on the positive. Oh, well, he bought me flowers today. Mm-hmm. So it's okay if he yelled at me a little bit because, I left my car keys inside the car, and it's not okay. And I think as human beings, sometimes we try to justify these behaviors because we get caught up in the emotions of it all. We get caught up in the lovey-doveyness of it. We get caught up in the attraction. That's happened to me before, where I've been so physically attracted to a guy that I'm just like, I don't want to break up with you because I think you're beautiful. But unfortunately, in the long run, it's not, it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. I think I only did it one time with my wife. In fact, I was given advice by one of our church leaders personally. Okay. We were talking together. Tom Perry.
Wow.
Told me you should schedule a date with your wife and then on purpose show up more than an hour late. Don't tell her. Don't call her. Don't give her any reason why you're late. Just do something else and purposely show up late. So me and my cousin, we didn't have anything else to do. We grabbed some baseball gloves. We played catch in the front yard for like an hour. And it's okay. I should probably go to my date now. When I got to her house 90 minutes late, she ran out the front door, threw her arms around me and said, "Oh, I'm so happy you're okay. It's so good to see you." I'm like, "Yes, pass the test. I just was worried about you. I'm so glad we can still spend the evening together." To me, that was a great sign. She didn't explode. Then she asked, "No, what did go on? Were you unable to text me?" But she was so good at negotiating it, navigating that without exploding. I did think this is a wonderful sign.
Yeah. And I think, just like you said, it's a huge sign and it says a lot about what you're going to be dealing with long term. I've only been married for 2 months. Nothing too dramatic has happened in my marriage in these past 2 months. It's really been great. But having dated my husband for 1.5 years before we did get married really did give me a good sense of a good foundation of what I was going to be dealing with long term. Nobody ever goes into a marriage thinking I'm going to get divorced, right? So that definitely has never been my mentality. My mentality has been, if I'm going to marry this person, it's going to be for the rest of my life, right? For the rest of eternity, per my religious beliefs, right?
Sure.
So it is a huge sign. There have been so many times where, like I said, he's been given that opportunity. I too, there's also been times where, I've seen couples, for example, if somebody, say, accidentally breaks a cup, one person in that relationship might throw a tantrum. "Oh, you're so stupid. You're so dumb. How could you?" That's a huge red flag.
Absolutely.
Right? That's happened to me and my husband before. First thing I wanted is make sure he didn't cut himself. "You okay?" "It's all right. It's okay." He's like, "Oh, I'm dumb. I don't know why I did that. My bad. I didn't mean to do it." It's okay. Mistakes. It happens, right? But that's what you want to focus on. You don't want to allow yourself to get so blinded by the emotions that you forget to just look at those important traits, how people are coping with things, what triggers them, right? So.
Okay. What else are you looking for? What other advice you have during that dating phase?
I would say, so I have a quote here. This is a psychologist. Her name is Dr. Anita E. Kelly. She tells us to remember that evaluating the character of your partner is what you are supposed to be doing before marrying the person. So let's not forget that. Whether you date your significant other for 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, it doesn't matter. You are supposed to be evaluating the character of this person. If this is somebody that you're committed to them, you're in this for the long run, you want to sit down, build a family with this person, build a future, you need to be evaluating their character.
That's great advice. I think that's very well said. So 3 pieces of advice already I've gotten from you. Analyze their character. Spend a lot of time analyzing their character. Look for red flags and see how they can negotiate conflict. See if they're going to manage or navigate conflict well.
Yeah, exactly.
What else would you add before you marry? Is there a certain amount of time you should be dating? Like, what would you recommend to most people? How long will it take to know that this is going to be a good fit?
I don't think there's necessarily a good amount of time to date someone. You really feel it out yourself, right? Because I think when you are talking about, long-term goals with someone and you are talking about a commitment like marriage or moving in together, right? If you don't necessarily agree with marriage or don't believe in it, I think so many factors come into it. Finances. Do you want to have children? What are our schedules going to be like if we're both working and in school? And all of these things come together. It really depends on each couple. My personal opinion, I always said to myself, when I knew I'd find the person, I'd date them for at least a year. There's no rush. I can get to know them. I can lay a decent foundation, get to really analyze his character, get to know enough of him where I can then determine, okay, I want to take this, I want to take this to the next step.
That's funny that you say that. Andrew, our partner here with Examine Leadership, he said almost the same thing. He wanted to date his fiance, his girlfriend, for all 4 seasons of the year.
Yep.
He wanted an entire year to make sure that there's nothing crazy, there's nothing he's going to find out that surprises him after marriage.
Yeah.
Do you believe in soulmates?
I do not.
No?
I do not believe in soulmates. There are, 8 billion people on this planet? If soulmates were a real thing, people wouldn't get divorced.
Maybe they just found the wrong one. Maybe they weren't looking hard.
No,
they didn't do the analyzing you're talking about.
But again, there are 8 billion people on there. I don't know how many people have been divorced globally, right? I don't know the statistic for that. But I think sometimes, and I think this is natural, humans change. So while I do think maybe, let's say, I'm married to my husband now. He's a great person now. We're compatible. We're great. But 10 years down the road, he changes. Things happen. Maybe we go through something tragic, traumatic, and all of a sudden we're just not compatible anymore. We can't make it work. So does that mean that I'm never going to find someone else, that I'm not compatible with another person? No, it doesn't. While that would break my heart because I do love him, there's still hope. So no, I don't believe in soulmates. I think, again, there are 8 billion people on this planet. You are bound to be compatible with more than one person. Yeah. So
I totally agree with you. I tell my wife all the time, there are a number of other women that I could have had a great relationship with. You were not the only one. I could have made it work with a lot of people. And guess what? There are other men out there that would have been better husbands than me. You would have been more happy with a number of other choices. I'm so grateful you chose me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. I don't believe in the soulmate thing. You know the number one predictor of divorce? The number one greatest factor, the main way you can tell if someone's going to get divorced, biggest predictor, teenage marriages.
Huh.
If you get married while you're still in your teenage years, and it's exactly because what you said, people change. What you want in life at 17, 18, 19 is very different than what your future goals are at 25, 26, 28, 30. It's very different. Now, hopefully, if you get married at 18, 19, and you have future goals, I think before getting married, without discussing future plans, big no-no. You should discuss every future plan you think of. Where do I want to live? What is my career? How much time are we going to spend together? Is it okay if we get a different career than you? Maybe even have to live out of state from you. How many kids do you want? How many different future potentialities can we discuss and navigate through together? If we can agree on a number of those or most of these, great. We can navigate that together. Without discussing those future potentials, and as long as most of them are aligned, you're great. If you don't agree on future plans, or if you're 18 or 19, you don't even know what you want yet. I'm not even sure what my career is. I'm studying my generals right now in college. You don't even know what career you want. Yeah. So you better be cautious and maybe take even more than a year. I don't know. I think if you're 18, 19, early 20, you may want to take some time to really do an extra analysis here.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, when I was a teenager, I wanted to marry every guy I dated. If I would have done that, I would have been married and divorced 3 times by now, So I think definitely if you're still in that adolescence age where you're about to hit adulthood, maybe take some more time. At that age where, our prefrontal cortex, which is the main part of our brain that constantly, makes decisions and the judgments, and it's constantly changing. And that's why we change. We're so different from, adulthood to when we were teenagers. We're very different. We've lived things more. You're fresh out of high school versus graduating college. You're going to start your career now. You're a very different person. So I think maybe if you're past your 20s, go ahead. I'd say a year. But if you're still kind of in that teen, pre-adult stage, take your time. There's no rush. I never understood the rush of getting married.
There's no rush. No rush. You made me think of Lil Wayne. You know, when you're a teenager, you're singing this song, we like her, and we like her too. You like everybody.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's more than just physical appeal, which is important, which is special. You need to have. But, yeah, do some analysis there.
Yeah.
So, you chose the right one. We're married, or a right one, right? There's no the right one. So, you chose a compatible partner. You chose a good one. Now, you're married. Is it all over? Is it smooth sailing from here on out?
Oh, I wish. I wish that were the case. But no, it's, one of my closest friends, he used to always say, when you get married, everything becomes magnified. You are living with this person, so you're going to see things that you did not see when you were dating. In my case with my husband, like something that drives him crazy that I do. I use the toothpaste and I forget to push all the toothpaste to the top of the whatever, what is it called? The toothpaste tube. And he always tells me, please push this up. It drives me nuts. I'm like, who cares? I'm going to have to squeeze it and it's going to spread throughout the tube anyways. Again, it drives him crazy. And vice versa, right? There are things that I do that drive him crazy. Those are minor things. Those are things, everyday things that you either have to adapt to, learn to live with, you can get over them. And then there are very big conflicts that come into play.
Yeah, I heard a joke one time. A girl was telling her father, I just got married. All my troubles are at an end. And the dad said, yeah, you don't know which end.
Exactly.
They just started. I think as you're going into marriage, as you're choosing and as you're starting marriage, it's important to remember, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson said, he's a clinical psychologist, you want to choose someone you can contend with. You want contention in your marriage. Not fighting, not beating each other up, but you do want someone that can contend with you and make you better, that you can grow. That's the whole dang point, right? You want to find someone that's going to help you grow and improve. And if there is zero contention, if there is no pushing and growth, you're not going to grow. My wife contends with me. She is a contender. She's an intellectual. She just started her master's degree. She's smart. She reads. I learned a second language because of her. I learned Spanish. I took an assignment with the military in Puerto Rico so I could learn to speak the language of her family. Her grandparents don't speak a lot of English. She pushed me to do that. I do stupid stuff. She contends with me about that. Why are you doing that? Dang it. Stop it. And it makes me change. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want to hear that right now. Don't tell me that. And usually 30 minutes later, I'm like, I really appreciate you pointing that out. That is a flaw. I do need to improve that. Thank you. So you do want a healthy level of contention in your marriage. What would you say?
Oh, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. So as I was preparing for the podcast, so I've recently started reading a book called The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. It was written by also a clinical psychologist and researcher, John M. Gottman. It is a great book. I highly recommend it. My stepsister actually recommended it to me when I first got married. She said, I started reading this book with my husband. I think it'd be great. So my husband and I have recently picked it up and we've been reading it. And so in preparing for the podcast, a little known facts about John M. Gottman, right? I said he was a psychologist and researcher. He has conducted extensive research for over 4 decades on divorce prediction and marital stability. This guy's a beast. And he is so good at what he does that he can predict divorce with a 91% accuracy rate solely off of his scientific research and data that he's collected over 40 years.
Wow.
So 91% accuracy rate of divorce is huge. So this guy, like I said, he is a beast. And in reading his book, he talks about how there are 2 kinds of marital conflict. He talks about conflicts that are resolvable and then perpetual conflicts, meaning that they will always be a part of your life in some form or another, and you basically have to learn how to cope. Just as you said, I think it's okay for you to argue. I think it makes you better. I think when you're married, you have to think of your partner not only as your spouse or your best friend, but you have to look at them as your accountability partner as well.
Yeah.
My husband constantly does that with me. And like you said, it drives me nuts sometimes. It hurts my ego because I'm like, I don't want to hear this. I'm having a bad day. Yeah, I know this was my fault, but I want you to side with me, Yeah. And he just doesn't do that. And the reason he does it is because he wants me to be better. He challenges me. So again, conflict can be good. You're 2 different people. You're going to disagree. So there's either going to be conflicts that you're able to resolve, or there's going to be conflicts that unfortunately you're not going to get past, because again, you're two different people with two different points of views, two different perspectives. And we have to find a way to cope with those disagreements, with those conflicts.
Yeah. So that goes back to why it's important to analyze those characteristics and values before you get married. How well do they cope with conflict? When people tell me we've never had an argument, or we never fight about stuff, I think one of you or both of you is not thinking then, or you're not being honest with yourself. When you get frustrated, all of frustration is an expectation not met. When you have an expectation and it wasn't fulfilled, then you get frustrated. And I asked my wife to be very clear about this too. She's mad. I'm like, why are you mad? Oh, I'm fine. Like, no, you don't get to say you're fine, because you're clearly not fine. So that's not an okay answer. You're allowed to argue with me and tell me why I'm dumb, but you don't get to say you're fine. That's not an honest answer. So which expectation of yours did I not meet? Well, what you said offended me. You got to be more specific. Did what I say was inaccurate? Was that not true? Or is it the way that I said it? Well, yeah, what you said is right, but I didn't like the way you said it. Okay, great. So I need to be more sensitive. I hear what you're saying. But what I said wasn't wrong, right? No, what you said was good. Okay, great. So the expectation I haven't fulfilled is that I need to speak with a softer tone or be more gentle with you. Yes, I wish you would do that. Okay, wonderful. Now we're making progress, right? And I make her explain to me which expectation did I not fulfill. And I'll do the same thing. When I start getting really mad and I'm gritting my teeth, I have to think, wait, hold on a second. Which expectation was not fulfilled? And I'll tell her, excuse me, love. I had an expectation that you do this. I'm sorry that this is a peculiarity of mine, or this is unique, or I'm sorry, but I did have this expectation. It wasn't fulfilled. Sometimes I say, hey, that was silly. That was a dumb expectation. I'm sorry. And once I analyze it, I can see that was stupid. I shouldn't have had that expectation. Or I can say, this actually is an expectation I need. I really do like it when you can walk me out the door or whatever on my way to work. That's easy. And if I can express it to her, she's like, oh, great. That's something I can easily do for you, and we can do it. So, but I like to be very clear about which expectation was not met here. Why are we frustrated?
Yeah, which actually, that's one of the things that Dr. Gottman talks about. He talks about the importance of identifying and defining your disagreements.
Perfect.
So you got to get down to the bottom of it, right? Sometimes I'll argue with my husband over super dumb things, and then I'm like, why am I mad? What really upset me about either something he did or didn't do, or something he said or didn't say, right? I think it's so important to really get to the bottom line of why the frustration caused the lack of expectation. Yes. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I love the question, and I like that you're asking that. What really am I frustrated at?
Yeah.
I'm not mad at him. I love him. I'm not mad at her. But there was an expectation that didn't get met. Where is it?
Yeah, which happens to me quite frequently. I get frustrated, and then my husband's like, you need to stop getting frustrated. He is so good at keeping calm, keeping cool. Not to toot my own horn, but truly, I did pick a great partner. And he just never loses his cool. Never loses his cool. He's just like, stop being frustrated. It's not doing anyone harm but yourself. And I think that's also very important, right? To have a partner that cares so much about you, to call you out and say, hey, you're putting yourself through a bad mood for no reason.
Exactly. You want your partner to call you out on stuff. If not, you're not going to improve. He is great. Very level-headed. We're at your house recording this episode, and while we're down the hallway, this man is cooking dinner for you.
Yes, he is. He's great.
And not to solidify gender roles, which I think both of us have frustrations with, but I had a psychology teacher tell me that every wife needs a good wife. And I think Angel is a very good wife to you. This man treats you great.
He is great. But so going on with the conversation though, so Dr. Gottman continues in his book talking about how 69% of marital conflicts are perpetual. Again, perpetual meaning that they're always going to stick around, right? So we have to learn to cope.
2/3, more than 2/3 of your problems are not going away.
Yep. They're not going to go away. And It doesn't matter how much you communicate, how much you bring it up. It's not going to change. It does happen. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen with my parents. I've seen it happen with friends of parents, or, I've seen it happen to so many people. The most important thing, though, as I briefly discussed earlier, finding a healthy solution. In the book, Dr. Gottman gives so many examples of couples that have come to this conclusion of we agree to disagree, right? Which I think sometimes is the best route to take. We don't want to sweep our problems under the rug and pretend that they're not there and they're kind of like a boogeyman that comes out once in a while. We don't want to do that either. We do need to acknowledge our conflicts, but many of the stories that he discusses in his book you see these couples that at the end of the day, they accept these conflicts and they laugh about it.
Yeah.
They really, it's like Kevin Hart says, laugh at my pain. I love that. I try to do that as much as I possibly can in my own life. If I'm going through a hardship, through a personal conflict, through a trial, it doesn't matter. I try to laugh. I'd rather laugh than cry or be angry.
Well, it's funny. Some of those unique things about your partner that may annoy you are usually the things you miss afterwards. They're unique to them. If you get divorced or if your spouse dies, so many people have told me afterwards, man, I miss this thing that used to drive me nuts. I want it back. Accept it, love it, embrace it.
Exactly.
Especially if you can't change it. That's a staggering statistic. 69% of the problems aren't going away. So you better learn how to deal with it healthily.
Exactly. One of the healthy coping mechanisms that he suggested, he says here, you can relate good-naturedly, don't get angry, laugh at your disagreements, and constantly work it out. Something that my husband always tells me, don't give up. If I keep making the same mistake, or if you keep making the same mistake that bothers me, keep trying. Keep trying. That's what I want to see. I acknowledge you for your effort. I know you're not going to change it from one day to the next, but one day you will, because these habits are exactly that. They're bad habits.
Yeah.
The important thing is just holding each other accountable and making sure that you don't give up. You're constantly working it out.
Yeah. And if it's not going to change, or even it's going to change little by little, he's helping you to make small progress. I've always heard what you focus on grows. And if your focus is all the negative things that Nathaly needs to change, that's going to grow. That's going to be all you think about. It's going to drive you nuts. How about we focus on the positive? This is a leadership principle too. We'll talk about this in another podcast since this is examined leadership. As a boss, as an employer, as a parent, or as a marriage partner, what you focus on is going to grow. It's like rats. And Dr. Peterson talks about this too. When a rat does something, you give it a little pellet of food. You reinforce that positive behavior. So when your husband does something, or wife does something good, you tell them thank you. You give them a hug. You speak their love language, whatever it is, and you congratulate them for doing that. They're going to do it again. You come home and your husband vacuumed the floor for the first time, but he missed the bedroom. If you say, man, you ain't even vacuumed the bedroom? Okay, yeah, he's really going to vacuum again, right? He's never vacuuming again. But if you say, I love you so much. Thank you for vacuuming. Forget the bedroom right now. Like, he did a good job. Acknowledge that, and he's going to do it again.
Yeah, that actually just reminded me. So I am super OCD with cleanliness, making sure everything's organized and neat in my home. So every morning, when my husband and I wake up, first thing I do, go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, brush my hair, I come back, and I make my bed. Mm-hmm. And my bed, I don't like wrinkles in my bed sheets. I like my pillows to be fluffed, perfect. Sometimes my husband will make the bed, but it's not the way that I like it. It's a little messy, it's a little lumpy, but it's the thought that counts, right? And I'm not going to go yell at him and say, hey, stupid, you didn't make the bed the right way. No, I'm going to say, you know what, thank you. And then when he leaves, I'm going to fix the bed. But at least I'm going to acknowledge his effort and say, thank you for going out of your way to think of me, giving me one less thing to do.
Yeah, Nietzsche, the philosopher, talks about this. If you really want to hurt someone, you don't punish them when they did something bad. You wait till they do something good, and then you punish them. Because that really hurts. And too often you do this in marriage. If you do this even a few times, if you make it a habit of this, and people usually do this vindictively. So my wife did something, and I'm gonna really show her. I'm gonna teach her a lesson. So next time she does something, I'm not gonna accept her overture. Like, my wife never cooks for me. So next time she cooks, I'm not even going to eat that stuff because it's garbage. Or my wife never touches me this way in bed. So, I'm not even going to reciprocate. Next time she tries to do something, I'm going to push her away. I'm going to not accept that. That's a great way to get divorced. If you lash out at someone when they do something positive, your marriage's not going to last.
Well, and it goes back to what we said in the beginning, making sure you're analyzing the character of your partner.
Yes.
You need to do that. It's what I always tell people. The signs have always been there. You were just blind.
Yeah.
The signs are always there. People can only camouflage for so long.
And that's why it's good to date for a little bit too.
Exactly. So
reward that positive behavior. And when you do something bad, you almost expect to be punished. So you almost expect to get some backlash. It's not that bad if you messed up and your spouse tells you messed up. But when you do something good and then your spouse retaliates, that's a recipe. That's a bad recipe. So you make sure to focus on the positive, and the more you focus on, the more you grow.
Yeah, I agree. You change the narrative, right?
Yeah.
Switch it up. Now with that though, let's say you've been married longer than I have. You've been married for 15 years. You got 6 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Say you have an issue that you just feel like, I'm done repeating myself. Yeah. I'm so frustrated. I feel like nothing is changing. I keep talking about this. I feel like a broken record. You're in a gridlock. What do you do?
That's a great question. I don't know. I haven't been married for 15 years, and there are some things that I'm like, how many times do I got to say this? How many times have we had to have the same conversation? And she'll even agree with me. You're right. I need to change that. And I'm sure she feels the same way. How many times I said, you're right. I'm going to change it. And I don't. I really don't know what to do. I hope you can give me some advice here. My only suggestion is, again, to look at the positive. Too many people, you are not going to find a perfect partner. There isn't a perfect partner. And if you find someone that's almost perfect, why would they be interested in you? Because you're not that good. So you're only going to get 80, maybe 90% of what you want. If you're focusing on this 10% that's gridlock, or this 20% that you're not going to get, you're going to lose all the rest of it. So please be happy with that. I would say don't go chasing this 10, 15% that you're missing to lose everything else. You got to take the big picture. I have a pretty dang good person. My wife is amazing. So these few things that she is just not going to change, despite 15 years of talking about it, I'm going to have to just accept that and know that I've got a wonderful wife, an amazing person, someone I'm happy to contend with for the rest of my life. That's my suggestion. I don't know. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, that's one, right? Everyone's different. In the book that I'm reading, he gives a couple signs of gridlock. I just wrote down 3. He's got like 6 or 7 on there. But I felt like these are the most common ones that we naturally tend to feel when we feel like there's no hope. So he says, the conflict that makes you feel rejected by your partner is the first sign of gridlock. You keep talking about it but see no difference.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually you disengage from each other emotionally. I've done that before in my past, and I've seen it happen to other couples. And it's a terrible feeling.
Yeah.
It's terrible. But something that he talks about, he says, the endless argument symbolizes some profound difference between the two of you that needs to be addressed before you can put the problem in its place. So, as I mentioned before, the book is full of assessments. One of the assessments specifically targets gridlock. So if you guys are ever interested, you feel like you're struggling with this, with your significant other, your spouse, your partner. If you ever feel like you're struggling with this, take the assessment. Get the book. Get it on Amazon. Order it. It's got so many assessments that are just, it makes you dig deep.
Yeah, the 7 principles for making marriage work.
That's it.
Dr. Gottman. I'm getting it. I haven't read that one yet.
It's a great book. And then he continues to discuss how you can resolve conflict in a loving relationship. And I think that's very important. That word loving. Oftentimes, I'm going to include myself in this, I've been in relationships that were toxic. Mm-hmm. So conflict resolution, no matter how much I thought I loved that person, it was not what he's about to name here. He talks about there are 5 things that you need to do in order to resolve conflict in a loving relationship. Number 1, he says, soften your startup. Kurt talked about this. He talked about, his wife needed him to, soften your tone with me. I'm hearing you, but I don't like the way you're talking to me. Soften your startup. Learn to make and receive repair attempts.
Explain that to me.
So second point, he says, learn to make and receive repair attempts. So say I'm arguing with my husband. I'm highly agitated. I'm yelling. I just had a really bad day and he just did something that highly upset me. So he's going to attempt to repair the problem. He's going to attempt to de-escalate. That's what he's going to do. I have to make sure that when he's having a bad day, I'm making those attempts. But when I'm also having a bad day, when he's making those attempts, I have to try my best to receive them as well. Mm-hmm. One of the things that my husband will do sometimes, and again, this goes back to the importance of analyzing your partner's character all the way to the beginning, all the way, the foundation, right? Everyone is different. Kurt just asked me, how do you do that? How do you de-escalate someone? Well, if you took the time to analyze your partner, to really get to know them, you're going to know. Everyone's different, right? Everyone's coping mechanism is different. So it really just depends on the person. One thing my husband does sometimes, when I'm really upset and he knows I don't like this, he will come and hug me and kiss me. And at that moment, that's not what I'm seeking. I'm not seeking affection. I don't want your affection. So naturally what I do is I push him away. I reject his affection because I don't want that.
Yeah.
That's not going to de-escalate me.
Not a good repair attempt.
It's not, because when I'm highly agitated and I'm touched, I get anxious. It makes me more agitated. What does work for me, though, is when he says, you know what? Fine, I'll leave you alone. And then I sit there and I think, that was stupid. He didn't deserve that. Why did I do that? And then 10 minutes later, I come around and I say, you know what? I'm sorry. That's what works for me.
It's interesting. Everybody's different. You know, when you get married, you maybe have a high school degree, maybe an associate's degree level of knowledge of what your spouse is, who your wife is.
Yes.
As you get married, you need to make sure you get that bachelor's degree. You go get a master's, you get a PhD. I know you inside and out, so I know, because that's not going to work. Oh, I'm going to leave you alone. Oh, you are, huh? Okay. That's not going to work.
Yep.
Makes me think of the Love Languages book. The Love Languages book has been critical for me and my wife, knowing what her love language is. And I even do this as a boss. If you open up my cupboard at work,
yep,
you'll see I have yours and everyone else's love language listed out, so I know how I connect with you, how I can best show love and appreciation for you. If I'm speaking one language, a love language, but you don't understand the language, if I'm speaking French and you only hear Spanish, you're not going to get a lot of what I'm saying.
Right.
So if I'm speaking gifts or words of affirmation to my wife, and I speak words of affirmation all the time because that's what I want to hear. That's my love language. I need to be affirmed through words. If I'm speaking words of affirmation for my wife, that's not her love language. And so if that's all the way I'm trying to repair things, oh, I love you, or don't get frustrated, or you're wonderful. She's not trying to hear that. She wants acts of service. She needs to see a serious act, which in her mind takes thought, takes preparation. So I need to speak her love language in order for her to be felt.
Yep.
I think that's critical. Really knowing.
It's huge.
Knowing how your spouse reacts or what your spouse needs.
Yeah, agreed. So continue on with the list. He says here, in order to resolve conflict in a loving relationship,
yes,
soothe yourself and each other. Huge too. Compromise. Compromising is essential. You got to meet halfway. You got to find that middle ground. You're two different people. You want different things. You expect different things. Find the halfway point. And then the last one, he says, process any grievances so that they don't linger. I've seen so many people in relationships, a lot of close friends that have felt sad about something or have felt anger towards something, and their partner or their spouse makes them feel stupid for it, does not validate. And that's what it means here. We need to make sure that as significant others, as spouses, as partners, as whatever, we're validating the grievances of our spouses. We need to make sure that we're not, bashing them, slandering them. This is so stupid. Why would you feel sad about this? Why would you? It's so dumb. That's not what they want to hear.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that we are acknowledging and validating their feelings.
A key phrase my wife and I use together is, I'm opening up my safe. The safe is the safest place in the house. In the bedroom or in the room down the hall, there's a safe, and when you open it up, there's valuables in there. You don't show that to everybody. So I'll tell her when I really need to get something off my chest, I'm opening my safe. That means it's a key word saying, please don't talk, please don't criticize. These are very sensitive emotions. I'm embarrassed or I'm vulnerable. I'm going to be super vulnerable right now. So I'm opening my safe and we immediately know, ooh, it's only time to listen. If you just said you're opening your safe, I need to do everything I can to validate right now because you're going to be vulnerable with me. You need to be validated. I need to make sure I'm speaking your love language. That's helped us.
I think that's critical. I think that's a great tool. I remember you telling me that a long time ago, before I got married even, and I think it's a great tool.
Opening up my safe.
Awesome.
Proverbs 15 says it. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. You got to make sure you're replying in a soft manner and in a way that your spouse is going to respond to. Interesting. What else did Dr. Gottman tell us?
Well, to finish up on my end here, there's a quote that I liked in this book. I was telling you guys how I get very irritable sometimes. I get very upset. Something that's helped me, funny enough, but that he says in his book is this. If your heart rate exceeds 100 beats per minute, 80 if you're an athlete, you won't be able to hear what your spouse is trying to tell you no matter how hard you try. Take a 20-minute break before continuing.
Oh, that's crucial right there. It's funny. I say that to my wife all the time. You're not hearing what I'm saying. You're not listening. According to him, I'm right.
You need it.
I've always been right. And she'll say, I am listening. Like, no, you are really not hearing. Because how fast?
100 beats per minute. If your heart rate exceeds 100 beats, you're not going to be able to hear your spouse. No matter how hard you try. Because you're in your brain. You're in your own head. You're thinking about you. So you need to take a step back, recalibrate, analyze, cool down, come back. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, legit. Next time we get in an argument, I'm going to say, check your Fitbit. If it's above 100, we need to chill out.
There you go.
If it's below, you need to listen.
Take a 20-minute break.
That's right. Listen to the words that I'm saying.
Time out.
But sometimes, I've engaged in conflict so much more than her that I'm able to handle it better. Like physical contact, fighting, growing up getting beat, fighting in school, going to war, being a police officer, getting this training, so I'm able to handle that.
Tolerance.
My tolerance. That's a great word. My tolerance is much higher for those situations. So my heart rate doesn't get elevated the way hers does. But she gets going and her heart rate gets going and she starts breathing faster. And I really feel like you're not listening to me. That makes sense now.
There you go. I mean, this guy has a PhD, psychologist, researcher, specializes in marriage. So if he's saying it, he knows what he's talking about. So
that's hard for me, Nathaly, though. Give me some advice because I like one of the things you said before. You can't sweep it under the rug. It needs to be addressed. Mm-hmm. You've got to resolve this conflict. So when we have an issue, she does want to de-escalate and get away and step away. I need a day or an hour or I don't know how long she's going to take to get over this. But I'm like, no, we have an issue. We're married. I love you. We're dedicated to each other. We're committed. We're going to work this out now. I want to discuss this very instant. And she needs space. She needs time. But me, I need to resolve it now. Otherwise, I'm not going to be good for the next 24 hours.
And that it's a very valid question. I can relate to your wife. It doesn't happen to me so much now as it did when I was a teenager. I get into these super huge, explosive, dumb fights. And I need a day or two. And my boyfriend had time. No, I want to fix this now. We need to talk about it now. And what I found was that, and maybe your wife was the same as me, I would just get so much more irritated. Mm-hmm. I need to cool my head. I need to gather my thoughts. When my husband does that thing, I never take I don't take 24 hours to come back to him and say, okay, hey, we need to talk about this. Yeah. I'm over in 20, 30 minutes. I can cool my head, luckily, that quickly. But for other people, it's different. But in that time frame, I think it's so crucial to be sensitive to that. Because at least in my case, I'm analyzing. I'm saying, how could I have approached that better? Did I hurt my husband? Mm-hmm. Can I forgive him for this? I'm asking myself a million questions and thoughts. And maybe your wife's doing the same thing. So I think it's so important to give her that time. I think, maybe if it goes over a day or two, then of course in a very loving, respectful way, hey, are you ready to talk about this? Never in an aggressive tone, right? So that lets her know that, hey, I respected your time, but I also got to hold you accountable. I also got to talk about this. I want to fix this with you.
I need to resolve it. So here's the strategy. Yes or no? Just tell me this is going to work. Okay, you're at 115 beats per minute. Come back to me when you're at 85.
There you go. There you go.
You look at your watch when you're at 85. Come back as soon as we used to have a beep. As soon as you get to 100,
There you
beep,
go.
beep. Ah, damn.
You set your Fitbit.
We got to walk away till we're back at 85. Let's come back together and resolve this. That's a great plan.
I think that's a great plan. Yeah.
Oh man, I have so many more questions. I need another personal session with you. So speaking of which, do you do marriage sessions? Do you do couples counseling, or do you just do individual counseling?
So I typically do individual because I think it's important to work on yourself individually first. When you do that, I think it's able to overflow into your relationships, whether it's your work relationships, whether it's your romantic relationship with your parents, whatever it is. So I typically work individually first.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You prefer that. Well, wonderful. Great conversation. Do you have any closing thoughts before we finish up?
No, that was a great conversation. I always enjoy discussing these topics.
Indeed. So again, this is Examined Leadership Podcast. Our goal, and we're going to continue to expand, is to create a network of professionals in several different areas. Leadership consulting, motivational speaking. Nathaly is our life coach. If you need a session with her to discuss marriage, personal growth, parents, we talked parents last time, anything, you do virtual conversations. We're in a quarantine right now. At the time of this recording, this is COVID-19 craze.
Yes.
Do you meet with people through Zoom?
Yes, I do.
Skype, FaceTime, all that's good, huh?
All sorts of technological apps.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for being here. Appreciate your thoughts. Can't wait to check out the book, and can't wait for my next personal session with you. Got a lot of questions now. So yeah, hoping this conversation helped you to look closer and be better.